about knickers last week, and there was a little report at the bottom talking about Anne's knickers
and male breastfeeding.
And
male breastfeeding, yes.
It was quite polite about that, I noticed. It wasn't right about some things as well. It had got a bit confused.
Why is it the ladies got new backdrops?
Oh. Look, I just want to get on with this blooming letter. I can't be messing around with you bunch of idiots all night.
Right. So the aim is to upset the David. AI. Yeah.
Except for you, David. You're not an idiot, and Andy's not an idiot, but Roger is. Right.
A little actually is being spoilt.
Right, okay, look, okay. And the axolotl, right? This is all being recorded.
Oh, yeah. How did that get on?
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, he's been spoiled. I've had to buy a cabinet.
Oh, you've got it?
Oh, it's frigging cabinet.
Excellent.
Oh, I'm going to put the cabinet together tomorrow and he'll be in prime place and I'll show you all next week.
Brilliant. Well done.
Look, can I just make a comment? David and Anne don't know what the hell's going on tonight now because they missed last week.
Well, you see.
Oh, by the way, Anne, I need your phone number.
Oh, my phone number. Okay, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, email it to me. Yeah, and that'll be good, right? Basically, we had an axolotl, right? We needed a home for the axolotl and a fish tank, and Ruth ended up with the axolotl, right? Ruth started talking about somebody talked about breastfeeding last week, men breastfeeding. That was what that last week was about, right? So basically, you had a report at the end of the meeting now, which will give you an overview about what we talked about, right? So that's good.
This that went on last week. What? This that went on last week that you got the report on. Was it just on those things that were, shall we say, slightly risque or averse?
No, the whole meeting. Yeah.
It was about the whole meeting. You should have had a copy of the
meeting. Oh, that's all I was querying. Yeah, if not.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, it also said, right, that everyone will get a copy, if they haven't already got a copy, of Romans in South Wales, right? Now, right now, they've already been placed into envelopes. They will be placed down to the post office, right? And the reason why I wanted you to have a copy of Romans in South Wales, right, was because in a few months' time, when we do the Roman period, you'll know how my brain thinks in regards to the Roman era, right? Now, then one of two of you said, how do we pay for the book? Right, you get a copy of the book, right? And if you haven't got any money to send me any money for the book, then don't, right? You already pay £50 every 2 months. That's fine, right? But if you wanna send a donation along for the book, that would be wonderful, right? That's how we left it last week. But you'll be getting a copy of the book whether you want one or not, right? And if you want to pay for it, you can. If you don't want to pay for it, just keep hold of the book and put 2 fingers up in the air, and that's fine. So that's what we said last week. And so when you get a copy of the book, know that I love you all, right? Except Roger.
Oh, thank you, Cal. Oh.
Roger, you're not getting funny enough. Roger's not getting a copy because he already paid for one.
I got one.
He loves me.
I'm not being nosy.
Oh God, I really, Anne's regretting even turning up tonight. She wished she had stayed away for another 4 months. Right, okay.
No stranger.
By the way, Roger, why do you look a bit like Gorbachev?
Yeah, because the red hair, my repair is on my head.
Right, okay.
Politically correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Right. Okay, I wanted to. David's just gone off now, just as I was about to ask if there's any news from anyone. Right, Trina, any news from anybody?
No, not this week. Not from me.
I'm gonna love how AI makes of this. How's your relationship going? Being shacked up with Idris?
That's ace. Absolutely ace.
Right, that's good.
Oh,
have you noticed? Right, every time somebody talks,
Africa, did I not tell you? Taking me to Africa.
Oh my bloody God!
Tell anybody.
No.
Yeah. God. I did a bit of filming recently in Casualty, and you know the that guy Jacob in it who's been in Casualty for like ages. That reminded me of Idris then, and we had a really good old conversation. But anyway, crack on. David, any news from you?
no.
Right, Anne, anything from you?
Nothing. No, nothing at all. Sorry.
You haven't done much with your life over the past 4 months. Right, okay then. And she thinks I had to go. Do you know what? She looks really nice tonight, Anne. Her hair's not as rough and ready as it usually is. Right, Andy, anything you want to say?
I should ask Margaret first, so you could tell her because we went to a conference, you see. So,
all right, Margaret. Okay, you got the glory, right? Morning glory. Give it to us.
Well, shall I give you a list of what the talks were?
Yeah.
Oh, for God. Yeah, go on then.
Sunken Kirk, you know, the stone circle near Millham was mentioned a lot, actually.
It was, and slagged off a lot. Yeah.
Slagged off a bit.
Hang on, why would they slag it off? Was it because I
why.
did a lecture on it?
No, can't think
Maybe.
why.
Anyway, we talked about Sunken Kirk. We talked about Lowther Castle and Village in its wider landscape. We talked about Neolithic axes on the Langdale uplands, but they may have been more than just rejected rough cut. And we talked about King Arthur's Round Table, Maybury Henge and Dunmill Raise.
So you didn't do much then? You didn't do any salt panning in Cumbria, did you?
No, we didn't have time for that.
No.
Do you know, actually, can I just mention this, right? When I was doing my salt panning research, right, the entire chapter on Cumbria I left out simply because we might be doing that again. And there was just too much of it. I had no idea that Cumbria was one of the key locations throughout history where salt was produced in Britain.
No, I didn't know that. I know it was quite prolific round here. I thought that was just round here. So
it was no, all along the west coast. It was massive, hugely. You look it up, right? I just thought, I can't do this because it was just too much.
I seen that somewhere.
Yeah, you did. I really appreciate that, Margaret. Next time, we won't bother going because you told us everything what happened in the lectures. Good. Right, Andy, anything from you?
No, because I went to the same conference with Claire.
Oh, for bloody! But you didn't cop on with anybody, did she? Because she had to go.
No, she did actually. Behaved herself quite well. So.
All right then. Okay, I just got to check on something in the background. Is the window closed? Yeah, good. Right. Talking about windows being closed, Ruth. Nobody cares about your axolotl now. You told us all about it. Right. Go on. Anything else from you, Ruth?
Nothing really. Nothing really.
Right.
I've just been watching a lot of archaeology bitties.
Are you looking forward to being somebody from The Walking Dead in the next filming at the end of the month?
Yes, I am definitely looking forward to it.
Good. You look good. You look good, half dead. Brilliant. Right. Anything from you, Judith? Do you want to play a walker from The Walking Dead in the filming at the end of the month?
I'd have to come to Wales though, wouldn't I?
Yeah, don't worry. You can shack up with Judith Ruth next door to the axolotl.
Yep.
I would if it wasn't so far.
Oh, fair enough. And your husband wouldn't be happy you sleeping with a male axolotl either. Right, okay then.
Time off work.
Oh, right, fair enough. Well, somebody's got to work to pay for everything that you spend out on. Right, yes. Okay then. Exactly. Right, okay. Right, Roger.
No.
Roger. You haven't got anything to say at all?
What? They're looking at this sort of altar stone again, saying that it's definitely not from Orkney, it's on the mainland.
Hang on a minute, right? So what they're saying is this altar stone that they've said is from Orkney. It doesn't actually come from Orkney now at all. Is that what you're saying?
Nothing at all.
What an absolute load of BOLLOCKS. No, I've had a guts full of them talking about Stonehenge.
It doesn't match.
Well, how can they make up a statement like that, right? And say 1 minute. I'm sorry, this is rubbish.
I agree.
No, you a geologist?
This is absolute. I gotta use some expletives. It's absolute crap what they're doing with Stonehenge now. The amount of money they're wasting on I forget it. Just not going there. So in other words, 1 minute the altar stone is from right, the next minute is from somewhere in northern England. The next minute is from Orkney, and the next minute it's from somewhere else. Great, brilliant.
Well, it's the content now they can analyse with the expertise in Australia. It's the best analysis with the machines. And the one in the stuff in Wales contains feldspar, the one up north doesn't, but it contains traces of barium. That's what's so far from in-depth analysis.
I've got to be honest with you. I'm looking at the screen, right, and your nose looks absolutely frigging huge. I got the laptop here. It looks like the biggest. You look like Barry Manilow.
I've got a big conch, so there we are.
Mount Everest in winter.
Yes.
There's no need for that, Barry Manilow.
Oh, come on, Andy. Look, people pay for this.
Everest maybe because it's white. But...
I have to paint it red.
You can put a little red mark on the front and you can be Rudolph.
I could write a little something on it.
You could.
You could make a real feature of it, couldn't you?
We love Carl.
We can all sign it. We can all sign it. Bandage on his nose. It's so funny.
That would be a small signature.
Right, okay, guys, we're going to do salt panning tonight. Yeah, I've just lost the will to live.
I've got a big red face.
Can somebody, Margaret, you can help me on this, right?
What?
I actually made the mistake the other day. I was talking about the film Dr. Zhivago, right?
Lovely.
And I made the mistake of saying Che Guevara was in it, right? And then I realised that I had no idea what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
You paid for this, right? Who the hell was Che Guevara? Can somebody tell me?
He was the Cuban.
He was a doctor who was a part of the Cuban revolution. He wasn't Cuban, but he joined in, and he was working with Cuba to dominate, or at least change a lot of the places there to left wing. He was a real fighter against the right.
He was Bolivian. Yeah.
He was from. Was it Bolivia?
Very famous.
It was somewhere. It was somewhere near Cuba, but I can't remember where. Argentina or somewhere near there, I think, but I can't remember which.
He was a revolutionist.
He was a revolutionist and was fighting with
all those pictures that you used to get sort of in the 60s and 70s of a guy with a berry and a star on and a beard going like that. That's Che Guevara.
Yeah, I know.
I read a book about his life. I thought he was interesting.
Oh, was it Jane Fonda?
Yeah. I might get one of them.
Power to the people. Oh no, that was Wolfie Smith.
Yeah.
But oh God, please. Do you know what? Right, I thought I went looking up Che Guevara, right, and on my phone it said you are not allowed to look up this information. No wonder. Right, okay.
Where?
Yeah, but you can't
stopping you reading things as well as speaking now, are they?
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
And against the reading. Yeah.
They want us to stay at home, that's why.
I wasn't on my devices. It wouldn't allow me to look at any images or any information about Che Guevara, so I just couldn't work out. Yeah, I now know, right? Because what I did, I got Che Guevara mixed up with Omar Sharif.
Yeah.
Right.
That's easy done.
They both had a moustache.
I'm cracking on. Okay, I'm really looking forward to what this AI says about this lecture at the end of this.
It'll be banned.
Yeah, it will be banned.
I shouldn't have admitted I knew about the Che Guevara because you could end up in prison these days. Reading things like that.
The question is, what is that?
Oh,
it's a thing.
Yeah, right.
End of a bone.
No, it's not a bone. It's and this as well. You know, it's all.
There's another piece. All right.
It's all interesting stuff. But basically, it's all part of the salt panning industry, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do that there, so we're ready. Right. So the one thing about tonight is that I really don't have as many images as I usually do with the lecture, and simply because my mind got so overrun and exploded with this salt processing stuff, right? That I thought we're just going to start off with this. And the reason why we're going to start off with this is absolutely nothing to do with salt panning at all, right? And I just thought back to that lecture, right, that we were talking about people living in trees, right? And it's basically talking about the Karawai people of Papua in Indonesia are famed for their towering tree houses, which can soar up to 45 meters above the forest floor. This practice dates back centuries, reflecting their adaptation to the dense tropical rainforest environment. And do you know what that got me thinking? If Britain's actually covered with trees in the Mesolithic period, right, why couldn't the people lived up trees, as we were discussing in the Mesolithic lectures, right? And you know, it's just like people today. Historically, the Parawi people built these elevated homes as a defense against flooding and predators, including wild animals and rival tribes. The tree houses constructed from local materials such as wood and palm leaves exemplify the Karawi people's deep connection to their natural surroundings and their traditional methods of craftsmanship. Despite increased contact with the outside world in recent decades, these remarkable structures remain a vital part of their culture. No bloody wonder. So these are 45 meters above ground level, right? 45 meters.
I pity the bin men.
What's that?
I pity the bin men and the postman.
I pity going anywhere near it. But basically, the whole thing about the lecture that we had when we were talking about the Mesolithic period, right? We were basically saying, you know, Britain was covered in trees. Where did people live, right? And therefore, in the Mesolithic period, they obviously lived in caves, which they didn't, right? So the point is where was the archaeological evidence? Why can't we find hearths and all the rest of it out in the middle of in normal fields where we'd find Neolithic and Bronze Age and Iron Age evidence and Roman evidence in the middle of fields and stuff? And if they were living up in trees anyway, right, you're not going to find that evidence because it's just going to, as the trees rot down, it's all going to fall to the ground and get dispersed. And this is proving that point, right? So I just wanted to bring that to you. It's been on my computer for bloody ages, right? And what we're going to do next is we're just going to chuck this word in there, briquetage. Now, briquetage, not briquettes, briquetage is something that is very much linked to iron smelting, but massively linked, 100% briquetage in a billion ways is linked to salt manufacture. Right now, interestingly enough, we've got a couple of people online, and one of them says, "Was salt the resultant from a reaction of other chemicals then?" And the answer is yes and no. We're talking about brine and we're talking about sea salt and all this stuff I want to chuck in here. But when I really started getting into this tonight, I just thought, not tonight because it's tonight now. When we're getting into this tonight, it's such a big, in-depth subject that my mind was starting to get blown away. Now, I'm going to apologise tonight in advance if it's not flowing as it usually is. It's probably because I'm still analysing the material that we're looking at. That's basically it. That's because it's basically like me doing a lecture on the development of Concorde. And me having to know all the complicated terms and all the rest of it, right? One of you might know, David, but then the fact of the matter is, I'm coming to this subject knowing a little bit, but not knowing everything, right? So we're all learning tonight on this. So the Iron Age should be called the Salt Age because salt was absolutely bloody massive to Iron Age people in Britain and across Europe. Absolutely huge. And the briquetage is some bits of the evidence. So, Andy, when you're on an Iron Age site and you get bits of pottery that are thick-walled, right, and they're scattered everywhere, it's because they're processing salt, right? And they might actually be processing iron, but there'd be stainings of iron and what on there. But if they're really thick bits of pottery scattered above across an Iron Age site, right, then it's probably because they're involved in salt manufacture. End of. That's it. Right. Now, obviously, you can analyze these things. You can get an idea what's going on. Now, I had to look up this term briquetage to try to get my head around it. So the briquetage, if you want to, we went to Wikipedia on this. So briquetage itself is very thick, coarse pottery, right? Huge, thick, coarse pottery. And what we've got to do is these things here are actually, as I go through the description, it says coarse ceramic material, normal sort of pots, right? Which have pillars on them, so legs, right? So here we go. Coarse ceramic material used to make evaporation vessels. So in other words, the clay, there's grit in it that makes the evaporation vessels. The bowls above these things, right? And these are the supporting pillars, which are then placed into kilns, right? The salt in there is then placed into a big chunk of salt, right? Which is another technical name for that in a few moments, right? And then the vessels are smashed up to extract the salt. So this is why you find, in other words, this was in the modern day and age when we're talking about we don't reuse lots of the plastic, right? These were single-use pottery, right? And the salt was so valuable they could make these pots, right? And they could afford to break them. So these are the legs or pillars. Now, when I was doing the research on this, I really didn't understand what I was researching. I just couldn't. I didn't understand because it sort of says vessels with supporting pillars, and I thought, right, okay, you've got pots, then somehow they're supported in a kiln on pillars, but no, the pillars are actually part of the pots, right? These are actually part of the pots. These are the bottom parts of the pots, and obviously the pot is above. So this is what these are, right? So, God, I've got to take a break a minute. So the next thing is I first came across salt panning, right, when I was meant to be the archaeological advisor for the television series Britannia, right? And we'll talk about that in a few moments. I couldn't get any photographs of it, by the way, right? So what you've got in Britain with the salt manufacturing industry, right, is seawater salt, which is basically well, you could basically say you've got rock, right, and you cut out sort of a sort of a shallow dish across the rock, right? And in the summer, the salt dries out, you scrape that off and you put it in a bucket, and that's sea salt, right? But the stuff that we're talking about with these things is brine salt, which is inland saline salt, which is the brine, right? And I've come across one or two TV series. There are people who go around Britain searching brine spots, right, which have been part of salt manufacture for thousands of years in Britain, right? Now, so what we've got. So in other words, what we're talking about is the seawater. You've got salt pans. That's what you call them. You've got salt pans, and basically is a salt evaporation pond, right? It's usually cut into the rock. And interestingly enough, that leads me on to the series Britannia, right? When I went down to inspect a set of human remains, which we later exhumed, they were actually setting up a set for the Britannia series, which was being filmed in 2015 to 2016, in a place known as Nash Point, which is in the Vale of Glamorgan, which is near a place called Lantern Major, right? So they had on the grass they had set up fiberglass artificial salt pans, right, which would be part of the series in Britannia, because salt manufacture was extremely important, and they set up these salt pans actually as part of the series, right? So the reason why I wasn't the archaeological advisor for it is because I was doing an archaeological lecture that day, and I turned up late on site, because I was doing my lecture and they got somebody else to be their archaeological advisor. So that's another bloody thing I missed out on. But that's life. So in other words, the thick-walled salt pans were filled with salt water, right? And in other examples, right? These are the more advanced examples. Instead of having these salt pans, which were evaporated salt pans, natural evaporating salt pans, you can have large salt pans, right? Which you might have a big copper pan or whatever, huge massive pans, and you fill them with salt water and they're heated from below, right? And until the water had boiled away and salt was left behind, and you scrape it, and then you've got the salt, right? So these are all these processes. Often the bulk of the water would be allowed to evaporate in salterns, salt pans, salterns, and these are all really relevant to understand this process, right? So what you might also have, this is where these come into it. You can tell how complex this subject is from me trying to get through it. So basically, these things here, what you might get is in these big salt pans where it's still moist and damp, right? You might collect it all together, right? This is the same with the brine, with the areas where you've got brine inland, right? It's transferred into small briquetage, small pots with those long lengthy pillars below for the final reduction. Once only salt was left, the briquetage vessels would be broken to remove every single piece of the salt. They'd be scraped out. It would be there, right? So this was so valuable. The salt was unbelievably valuable. Going back from this description again, broken briquetage material is found at multiple sites from the late Bronze Age in Europe into the medieval period, and archaeologists have been able to identify different forms and fabrics of the pottery, allowing trade networks to be identified. So in other words, what would happen is that when you'd break these pots, right, you'd have a big chunk of salt that would then be traded, right? And any salt then you'd scrape away and you might put it in a bag or something. Salt working sites contain large quantities of this briquetage, right? You can find them in Essex and loads of different parts of Britain. Now, the archaeological evidence from Cumbria, right, is mucked up because they've been manufacturing salt in Cumbria. And when I was looking at this, it was like Cumbria, right? And I just thought, oh my God, this is just a lecture in itself. And I just thought, what happens is when you're manufacturing something in one place for thousands of years, right? The evidence of earlier activity is usually removed, right? So the only stuff that you've got left is the later activity of salt panning, right? Whereas in other areas of Britain and other areas of Europe and everywhere else, right, you've got evidence of salt panning because people and everything else that's going on. You've got this evidence, this briquetage left behind, and then people are manufacturing salt in other localities. What we've got is that we know, this isn't the definite date, but we know that people have been using various techniques to extract salt for over 8,000 years across Europe, right? And the clock is obviously going further and further back. God, so with that said, let's go on to something else. So let's go on to another image. And you will find some of this stuff. You will find some of this stuff online, but you've got to go into this and you've got to go into that and you've got to get deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, what we do have is generally ancient times. Even though we've got those dates of about 8,000 years evidence in Europe. Moreover, we've got written evidence of salt manufacture. Some of the earliest written evidence that we've got of any manufacturer on the planet comes from China, right? Dating back to 4,700 years ago. So the Chinese and there's a document. So it's a document known as the Ping Xiao Camu document from China, one of the earliest known writings, recorded more than 40 types of salt. So in other words, what we've got is we go to another part of the world, right? And they've got 40 different types of salt. It describes two methods of extracting and processing salt, similar to methods still in use today. So the extracting and manufacture of salt hasn't changed. And there you go. We'll go through that process on the but I want you to look at that there while I'm going through this. So the point is, people writing about salt in the past tells us how important salt was, right? So for example, people only write about important things in the past. They don't write about, Dave over there married Francis, or 10 people were killed in the street by a tsunami, right? They write about massively important things that have got wide-ranging influences, right? So writings on salt, no doubt, also existed on the clay tablets of ancient Babylon and on Egyptian papyri, such as all the papyri dumps found in Egypt, right? Even without written evidence, even if there was no written evidence, right? Even without written evidence, we can be fairly certain that salt making and use was a feature of life in all ancient communities. So it was huge. Now, it goes down to the question: when did people realize that salt was important? They just did. Right? I've got sheep, as you know, and you put they like, we got them salt blocks, right? And they like their salt. Now, humans in the past would realize that if you take sheep, they lick the rock. Why are they licking the rock? Right? We would have cottoned on to that as human beings. And why are they licking the rock for salt? Right? What is it doing to them? Obviously, it's important. Right? That's what we'd have realized. Right? So this is the thing. You can think about where isolated from modern trade and technology. People did it everywhere. People were wanting salt. It was something. It was something in the air. Everyone manufactured salt, right? So that's one of the levelers. Everybody on the planet is from Aboriginals in Australia, through to ancient Egyptians, through to people in Western Europe. Everyone's finding their salt connection, and it's all done in isolation. People in Aboriginal Australia have got no idea what we're doing with salt, but we're needing salt as much as they are, right? So in the British Isles, prehistoric man will have made his salt from seawater or from the few places where inland brine springs had been discovered. So brine is like a dirty browny sort of off color, and you basically that's where you're getting salt as well. Traces of these activities, you could say, are difficult to identify, but we have got archaeological evidence in Britain going back to the Bronze Age. Cheshire, this is interesting. In Cheshire, in the heart of Britain, you could say anywhere's the heart of bloody Britain, but Cheshire was we know of a Neolithic trade route which crossed the salt fields where Iron Age Britons probably traded with Westmoreland. Just think about it. We got the Cumbrian link. I love that when I read it. Let's just do that again. People in Cheshire traded their salt with people in Westmoreland, apparently for stone axes. But then you find out that there's so much salt being extracted in Cumbria. What's special about Cheshire salt? But there was something special about Cheshire salt. Maybe it had a different taste. This is really important. This is the point. When we look at this chart now, I've got so much to tell you. It's just endless. And For example, this we're not doing this today, but for example, the Roman soldiers were partly paid in salt. It is said to be from this that we get the word soldier, salder, salder, meaning to give salt. So a soldier um, is classed on the value of salt. So we get salder, salt, salder, soldier. That's where we get the term soldier from. That's what it's got in front of me here. From the same source, we get the word salary, salarium. So in other words, part of your yearly income, your salary, is paid in salt. Salarium, salary, it comes from salt. You can't underestimate the power of the word, power of what salt is. Listen to this as well. We've got to do that chart in front of us in a minute. Salt was a scarce and expensive commodity, and its value was legendary. To sit above or below the salt identified precedence in the seating arrangements at a feast according to one's rank. What? To be worth one's salt was a great insult. The Bible compliments some men as being the salt of the earth. There you go. Andy, you're the salt of the earth. Roger's not. So there we go. We got this amazing. Roger, I do love you. You know I do. I love your nose. It's huge. Right. Okay. During the Iron Age, so have I got a big nose, Rog? During the Iron Age, salt was produced in Britain by heating seawater in large ceramic pots over hot flames to evaporate the water and leave salt crystals. So again, there's so many ways you can look at this. It's the importance of salt. Right, it really, really is. And obviously it's forgetting to mention there that they're on pillars. Gather water, place seawater in large ceramic pots, or you've got the big salt pans. Anyway, back to this. Heat support the pots with stones over hot flames, or you've got those long legs on them. So there you go. Evaporate the water to leave salt crystals. You can naturally evaporate in big salt pans. There you go. Back to the pots. Break the pottery vessels to obtain the lump of salt. So you're worth a lump of salt. That's basically, if somebody comes up to you, Ruth, and says you're worth a lump of salt, it means you're so bloody valuable. You're amazing. Yeah. So salt is a complimentary word, right? And I, as you can tell from my enthusiasm, I had no idea that salt was this important. And this is the question in a break, right? Come back at me. Did you realise how important salt was in past society? Oh, go on, Roger. Did you realise this, Rog?
Well,
Rog, I've just asked you a question, you numpty, right? Did you realise how important salt was in our prehistoric landscape?
yes, definitely.
Oh, shut up, Ross. No, you didn't. Archaeologists have found evidence of salt production in Britain in the following locations. Lincolnshire is where we're going to go, and East Anglia, Fenlands. Large amounts of briquetage or pottery vessels used in the salt production process have been found in these areas. Let's leave that list there. Let's have a little more look at this. So here we go. Take all this in, folks. Take it in. And Cumbria is not even mentioned on that list. The Iron Age, archaeological evidence of Iron Age salt making in Britain has been largely based on the discovery of remnants of coarse pottery and vessels, as we've already mentioned, and supporting pillars that we've seen, recognised as being connected with salt making and known as briquetage, where we've seen photographs of that as well. Seawater or brine from inland springs was evaporated in these vessels over fires to give a residual lump of salt. There have been extensive finds of Iron Age briquetage in Lincolnshire, that's where we're going to go, and East Anglia Fenlands, and along the Essex coastline. There you go. Here, the seawater was concentrated in 3 pans, 60 centimeters wide, 120 centimeters long, and about 12 millimeters thick. So huge pans. Now, the technology for all this it blows your mind. It really does. The strong brine was then evaporated in small pottery vessels supported on pillars to give the lump of salt, which was obtained by breaking the vessels. Again, it's thinking. These beautiful pots, right, are destroyed. They're smashed up to obtain the salt. Again, there's actually Roger. There's actually a metaphor for this. In the late 1500s, 1600s, and going into the 1700s, you used to buy clay pipes, right, with the backy in the end of the clay pipe, right. And as soon as you smoke the clay pipe, you chuck the clay pipe away. You just break it and chuck it away, right? Because the backy was more valuable than the manufacturer of the clay pipe. In fact, it was 10, 20 times more valuable than the manufacturer of that clay pipe. You chuck it away, you discard it. This is why you find so many clay pipes in the field, right? So in modern society, when things are thrown away, you throw them away because it's what's in this product, right? So, for example, today, actually, tobacco is so expensive these days. What is it?
31 pound a pouch.
Oh, bugger off! Really?
Yeah.
So,
31 pounds a pouch or more.
Get off!
Honest.
We believe you. So, in other words, you can see my point.
Buy it, and I know.
If you have that stuffed into clay pipes, right? The backy is, you just said it, is more valuable than the clay pipe. You just said it. You just proved what I just said, right? So anyway, back to this. So what we've got is archaeological excavations at salt making sites in Cheshire and Worcestershire. Have produced relatively small amounts of briquetage when compared with the coastal sites. So obviously, brine salt manufacture inland is not as copious as salt manufacture on the coast, naturally, because there's more salt on the coast because it's bloody sea. It appears that the finished salt was distributed in the characteristic coarse pottery vessels in which it was made. The briquetage from these vessels has thus been discovered at Iron Age settlements over a wide area of Wales and Western England. So instead of, on some archaeological sites, we come across a lot of pottery, right? And it's like, oh, we come across a lot of pottery because they were careless, right? Were they? Like they weren't careless. They broke these pots in the Iron Age, these thick wall bits of pots, to actually get access to this big chunk of salt, right? To be honest with you, it seems a bit weird to me. Why don't they just try and scrape it out or whatever? But no, they needed it in a big lump of salt. They couldn't be asked. Just break the thing, and you get the big lump of salt. It sounds like modern day society, to be honest with you. It really, really does. When we got lots of throwaway things, you go and buy a plastic bottle with water in it. You chuck away the plastic bottle, right, after you've drunk the water. You should actually be keeping the plastic bottle, right? But when we make that analogy to back in the day, they did it as well, except their pottery wasn't bad for the environment. Clay dug between Middlewich and Nantwich, again, we're going up Cheshire way, has been shown to have been used to make the pottery fragments found at these Iron Age sites. Archaeologists has also found evidence of iron making salts, and the excavations reveal brine kilns. They're actually brine kilns on which Iron Age type earthenware vessels of brine were heated. So this again, it is something that is just blowing my mind away, to be honest with you. Right, so there we go. So we've got Lincolnshire, the archaeological evidence at Lincolnshire and East Anglia. Obviously, East Anglia goes on to the East Coast, and large amounts of briquetage or pottery vessels used in the salt production processes have been found in these areas. Archaeological evidence. Large amounts of briquetage have been found along the Essex coastline. Again, that's to do with the Iron Age manufacture of salt. And if I take myself out of this and I think, right, you would think that the Iron Age, you would find more evidence of iron manufacture than you would salt manufacture, and it seems to be the other way around, right? There's lots of salt, and is you can't eat iron, can you? But salt is what can you do with salt? You can preserve, you can preserve meats. Salt, you can add flavor.
They like we freeze stuff. They used to use salt to
exactly
it so that it would preserve it.
Yeah, and salt drains off liquid, right? It's versatile, right? And it's, for example, you can use salt as even use salt as a weed you spread it across the land, and things are going to not grow, a suppressant. So you can use it for lots of things. You can use it for pharmaceutical purposes. You can grind it up and all the rest of it. It's versatile, right? And it's massively valuable, and it's massively tradable, right? So Cheshire, Worcestershire, archaeological digs have produced evidence of salt production in these areas, but in small quantities and at coast sites. So they're inland. Middlewich excavations have revealed brine kilns, whole processing areas, whole kilns, which are just dedicated to frigging salt. Like they're building kilns to do with salt, not iron, not copper, salt. And Iron Age type earthenware vessels of brine. And there we go. Stamford Wharf Nature Reserve, evidence of salt marsh plants such as samphire or glasswort being used as fuel to evaporate brine and crystallize salt. So it's actually used as more like a flux, right? So this is, samphire is very much a salt-based plant because it's in salt marsh and all the rest of it. So using that in regards as fuel, drying out and using it as fuel in regards to evaporate the brine and crystallize salt. Inland sources of salt were also used in the Iron Age, and salt was transported in characteristic briquetage pottery vessels. Sometimes it was just transported in the vessels, and when it got to location, right? But the problem is it's got those long blooming pillar legs on them, so I don't know how that would work. So what I'd like to do now, I would like to take us over to Lincolnshire, right? And it's a part of the world that we don't often go to. Mind you, when we do the Roman period, we will be looking at Lincolnshire quite a bit. And by the way, I don't know if any of you actually follow my YouTube channel, right? But I do daily. And this will help us when we do the Roman stuff. I know Judith, who's one of my groupies on YouTube, right? Who none of you know Judith. She's a lovely woman. She looks like a Fraggle. So she watches that every day, and I do a Roman video every day. It's a 1 minute Roman video every day, right? And I wanted to mention that because we did a little bit about Lincoln the other day. So I come across this wonderful piece written by the Leicestershire Archaeological and Historical Society. It's a great piece. And interesting enough, as you can see, it was published on the 24th of March 2024. And if you can't get closer to up-to-date evidence looking at salt, then I don't know what is. And if you look at the title, it says Iron Age Landscape of the Salt Way. There's actually a salt way. It's like the Silk Route, but this is the salt way. This is the salt trading way. They're trading salt moving across the landscape, right? And there is our Lincolnshire, right? So what it is, they've discovered a route running from Donington in Lincolnshire across to Barrow-upon-Soar in Leicestershire, and through and what they've got this routeway. And there it is. It's going across, and if we go to the map, there it is. It's this long map. So Barrow-upon-Soar, right? Donington, all the way across through Lincolnshire, right? It's this trade route. It's this salt way, and this is like a high resolution map. So this is the thing. Throughout the ages, there have been several salt roads. Did anyone know we had salt roads? Ruth, I'm not picking on you because I think you might know or you might not know, but I did know
I can tell you something about Wales.
Well,
go on.
We've got salt marshes.
Yes, we do.
Because when I bought my meat up in Whitland in Wales from the butcher, he said these sheep are reared on the salt marshes.
Salt. There you go. And actually, I'm it's odd. It's odd you mentioned that, right? And what I was going to ask, right, Ruth, I'm going to ask you another question in a minute. So stay on a minute. We have got a sheep, right, known as the Ronaldsley sheep, right, that lived North Ronaldsley sheep that actually has a massively high salt-based diet, right, because they've been born and bred on the coastline, right, and they've been eating kelp, right. I couldn't have North Ronaldsley sheep here because they would die, right, because they're into a massively salt-based diet, right. So that leads me directly, and this has been because the sheep farmers on North Ronaldsley, right, fed them with kelp, and it was that is basically what Ruth said in a completely different way, completely different breed sheep. Ruth, can I ask you something? All of what we said about salt, did you know any of this tonight?
Well, I know a bit about it, but not a lot.
Yeah. So in other words,
I knew how they did it in the pans and the pots and all that. I understand all of that and
good
things.
Good. But what I'm saying, the point is, what I'm asking you, did you understand the massive, huge importance that this has to prehistoric people?
I know it's
amazing.
It's logic, isn't it?
It is logic. It is, but it's so wide-ranging. It is.
You know from old that they used to pack them with salt. So where did they get the salt from? And then we find evidence that they used salt, and
that's true.
And
yeah,
we've got the evidence now to say where the salt came from and where it was produced.
And the trade routes. Go on, Rod.
Found it.
Rod.
These little sheep going lick, 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 and they found salt.
Exactly. It's the sheep. It's the sheep link. Right. Move on from Ruth. Anything? Go on, say, Rog. Go for it.
No, it's all you said is interesting, and it was needed because, as people were saying, a lot of the salt was needed for preserving stuff, fish and meat. Mostly that was it, I guess. But that was important then, because as Judith said, or Rufus said, was they didn't have the fridges and the rest.
Exactly.
Simple thing which kept them going.
Exactly. So throughout the ages, there have been several salt roads transporting salt from Lincolnshire coast, salt from Lincolnshire coast into Leicestershire. So Lincolnshire, the coast of Lincolnshire, into Leicestershire. The most northerly of these routes is known locally as the Salt Way, an actual way, as you've got it on your plan there, dedicated to salt. The Salt Way. Amazingly enough.
My brother was born in Rutland.
You are what?
My brother was born in Rutland.
You throw me down. Shut up.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, that's weird. Anyway, what we've got this salt way crossing into the fens, across the upland areas, crossing the rivers, and way into the landscape. And the one thing about this is the importance of this road to salt transport in the Iron Age, and that's the point. We're using the word road, and when we use the word road or transportation route, we then go to thinking about, but there were no roads in Britain before the Romans, but all the evidence tells us that there was massive traffic in moving salt across the landscape well before the bloody Romans. And it's also known as Salter's Way. However, the road clearly had, what happened later on is that this word Salter's Way, which is that dotted line, the Salt Way, Salter's Way, not Salt Way, Salter's Way. That's another word. It's said that the Romans actually constructed that route of salt movement, salt traffic, but it wasn't. The evidence now tells us it was Iron Age people who had a dedicated route of salt trade, and then the Romans bastardized that route and made a routeway across it. In other words, a continuance of the original salt way that existed, and the Romans just, in other words, in the history books, took all the glory for this, the old salt way. But it already existed well before the Romans. So the roots of the salt way were Iron Age and not Roman in origin. And that's one important thing that we must think of and divert our thoughts. It's not all about the Roman bloody world, right? It's about seeing what was here before and seeing the emergence of those earlier technologies into the Roman world, and we then see that this is all guided from one of the industries of pre-Roman Britain, i.e. salt manufacture. Now, before the draining of the fens, these marshlands were described as the site of a battle between marine waters of the sea and the fresh waters of the river. Sometime around 3,000 years ago, the climate of Britain became cooler and wetter. Sea levels rose, and the previously freshwater Lincolnshire fenlands, which is going to be on the right-hand side there towards the sea, turned into a maritime environment. Seawater came in from the coast along creeks up to the western fen edges, creating huge salt marshes. And it's exactly the point. One thing that Ruth said earlier on, salt was extracted from the seawater of these creeks in locations known as salterns. Again, this saltern landscape, that again, salt pans, areas, creeks, where the salt would be left to dry up. The salterns in the modern drainage fen, the silted up ancient creeks can still be seen. They stand about a metre higher than the surrounding land and are called roddens, right? And what we've got is we've got another little plan here, which is a very high resolution plan, which I'm going to give you now. And this is again technical stuff here tonight. We're on a technical edge. They've actually, this isn't something that they put together in 2024. The Fenlands Management Project carried out extensive surveys understanding this great salt linkage with the ancient world into the modern world from the 1970s onwards, and found the distinctive, and what they started to find that when we say that the Romans are producing this route, they are in fact not producing this route, because we know from the 1970s that there's all this briquetage pottery dumped across the landscape, which is then linked to Iron Age people. So this LiDAR image elevation map at the fen edge, with the scale set to show the slightly raised rodons, right, and the brown circles are recorded scatters of Iron Age briquetage. Now the rodons, right, the rodons, if you can make that out, I do believe that those are going to be the white areas on the map, if I can work that out. The raised areas, which are 1 meter standing from the fen-like landscape around. So the fens, there you go. The fens are the grey area, and the white stuff, the white standard stuff, is slightly a little bit higher than the surrounding landscape. The brown circles are recorded as scatters of Iron Age briquetage. So in other words, they're manufacturing the salt in these localities, right? So this sort of briny, salty, salt marshy landscape, they're extracting that around Donington before it goes from this Donington landscape, Lincolnshire, onto the black stuff. No, the sea, that's not the sea on the black stuff that goes into the upper areas, the higher areas. That takes us into the upland areas of the likes of Leicestershire. Right, so what we've got is there's massive guidance of extraction of salt at these areas, and these are only some of the areas that they've excavated. Those little brown dots, these are only some of the areas. So an excavation carried out in the 1970s at a place known as Billingborough indicated a salt making took place. They've been manufacturing salt, they've been extracting salt at one locality from as far back as the end of the Bronze Age, 800 years BC, so that's 2,800 years ago. And unfortunately, I'm struggling with these localities. There's another site known as Hepringham. I don't know if these are marked on the other map. Are these marked on the other map? It's going to be on that side, isn't it? No, can't find where these are. Right. But anyway, back to this. So these sites. So the site known as Hepringham has also been indicated that they've got a massive salt manufacturing taking place. So obviously, they're those little brown dots where the briquetage has been, where they found bits of briquetage. Right. And we've got some really nice other images coming up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up a little bit as the sea levels fell from their peak in about the 500 years BC. The marine environment retreated and the salt extraction slowly moved eastwards. Right, by the Roman period, an area east of Donington became the centre of salt production. Now, there's one other thing that I'm going to say as well. Right, we've got some key dates. So 3,000 years ago, water levels rising. Right, so it means that lots of the land on the right-hand side is being flooded and becoming fenlands, the fenlands of Lincolnshire, right? But about 500 years BC, to the period of roughly the birth of Jesus Christ, what we then have is that the marine salty seawater briny-like landscape is all starting to dry up. It's starting to get peaty. It's starting to dry up as well, farmland as well. But by the Roman period, most of the work of taming the landscape has already been done, right? So this is another myth. When you look at maps of Roman Britain, it basically says all of this area on the right-hand side, the Romans reclaimed. They didn't. It was naturally reclaimed. The water levels dropping. The landscape is completely different, right? So we can't sort of we can't basically say that the Romans are responsible for canalizing and reshaping the landscape, because most of it's already been naturally being done. So where are we now? It's 8:52. So what I'm going to do, we're gonna basically and this is a very interesting map as well. Let's just look at the map as well, and then I'll do my little other bit of the text. So what we got the distribution of domestic enclosures shown as black white circles, right? So on the right hand side, you've got these sort of black white circles there. You've got a few black white circles there. Oh. So the black white circles themselves are domestic enclosures, normal everyday people. Those with early Iron Age phases are shown in white, right? Black are later, so you've got loads of black dots, Iron Age, cannot be accurately dated. Hill forts are also shown brown, right? So in other words, you've got a very rich landscape, and this is going in from Lincolnshire into Leicestershire, right? And even in this area, basically, I think what they've done, don't worry what's north of that dotted line there, and don't worry what's south of that, the dotted line. There's loads of stuff north and south, but what we're interested in is that corridor within these lines, within this, and you've got lots of Iron Age activity. And lots of Iron Age activity tells us that basically these people are probably very much dependent upon salt, right, and the salt industry. So this is the thing. People are hugely indebted to what's going on with the salt. There's a lot of movement of salt industry, right? And and one sec. One sec. I'm also thinking that my head is thinking that there's probably a hell of a lot of salt moving about, right? And it can't just be for domestic consumption, right, it must be a huge trade consumption across Britain and further afield, right? So there's a lot of trade in salt. So when people when people talk about trade, right, they always talk about I was going to say mangoes and lemons. No, when you're talking about trade, you're usually thinking about pottery. You might think about iron. You might think about grain. Okay, if you want to go a bit deeper and start talking about slaves, but if but who actually ever talks about salt? Like how many people who do television programs talk about salt and the salt trade? Nobody, right? Okay, I know Margaret's going to say, oh, by the way, I saw a whole series last week on the salt manufacture across the world. But other than that, you don't often see people talking about salt, right? Even though it's massively, hugely important. So my next bit, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this bit, and then we might take a break because I'm possibly thinking that I might need to grab a drink. Where was the salt exchange? We'll do this bit. Now we like a bit of folklore, don't we? Folklore says that the salt was transported along the saltway, that red dotted line there. That's still a saltway, big long red dotted line there. Over the Soar and into the Midlands, but there is little evidence to support that statement up until the 1970s. And now, inland sources of salt in the Iron Age are recorded in Worcestershire and further north in Cheshire. The manufacture of salt from these sources was less demanding than extracting it from seawater, and a wide system of exchange developed from these inland sites. So what we're talking about a lot of trade. Cheshire, Worcestershire, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, Cumbria. Again, the hoodoo of Cumbria. The inland sites use characteristic briquetage pottery vessels to transport the salt, which allowed archaeologists to detect the distribution of the salt. Now, there's two arguments over this, whether they're breaking. This is the thing. This is the big problem in my reading on this. Some archaeologists argue that in locality where they're manufacturing the salt, they break the pot and then they put the salt probably in a bag or a bucket and they trade it that way. These people in Leicestershire are actually saying that they're actually taking the pots with the salt in it to localities, but that wouldn't make sense, because if you're going to move the pots around with the salt in, right, and then when they get to locality you're going to break the pot to get the salt out, that's a lot of weight. You know, you're doubling the weight of the salt if you're moving it with the salt pot, right? So I would say it's more likely to, but anyway, what do I know? They're seeing other things happening in this archaeology anyway, so I can't argue with that. So this research well into the north and west of Leicestershire, they've got fragments of briquetage salt transport vessels were found in lots of areas. It is more likely that the movement of northern Fenland salt was to communities in East Leicestershire and South Nottinghamshire. So it goes off the map there on the south. However, it is thought that the Fenland salt was transported in containers made of organic material, probably reed baskets, making Iron Age distribution difficult to detect. So in other words, in those two paragraphs there, you've got one set of archaeologists saying that they're moving them in the pots, and then another set of archaeologists saying they're actually taking them out of the containers and then they're putting into containers of reed baskets and other organic materials. So it gets very confusing what we're saying. What's that? It would make lighter transport not to have them in the pots. Exactly. Yeah. So on that note, what I might do is that I'm looking through my notes here and thinking that I've still got a nice bit of a chunk to go, and hopefully this is reading okay, and everybody's seeing something in this tonight, which is great. So I think we've got enough to keep us going anyway. I was gonna chuck a bit of oh God, I was going to chuck a bit of, oh God, lime kilns in, but we've got these images to go through, and we've got this and some other ways, and they've actually done reconstruction work on this as well, and there's basically done reconstruction work saying that this is how they did it, right? And that's basically the supporting thing. Basically, when you've got, I think the way this works, right, is that if you've got a rack of these things, which are on these legs resting up against a frame of something, and then because obviously if you've got all these nestling up against each other, it's going to be a hell of a mess in the kiln. So you might have something like this, like a rack, and then heated from below, and then you've got these, and then you know the rest, right? Oh, and that's basically a little bit of a base of one of these things, and just think these would be really, really heavy. Okay, so I think what we're going to do, we're going to take a break there, and we're going to stop sharing, and we're going to have. I deserve a 15-minute break on that. And you will be getting all of this. Hopefully, AI will understand. I have to spell this out. Bricotage, Bravo, Romeo, India, Quebec, Uniform, Echo, Tango, Alpha, Golf, Echo. If you're listening, AI companion. Right. Okay, then, talking about my AI companion, anything you want to say, David?
No, thank you.
Good. And Dreeny Beaner?
How did they stop the salt reabsorbing water? I have salt and sand put out when it's icy, and it just goes liquid.
Oh, why do you have to say something silly like that?
It's a good question.
Oh, for God's sake!
Would it be better in the pots? Would it not? I don't know.
Oh, I see what you mean, to transport it. Right, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so obviously, if it's in a, right, have you ever had sheep, Drina? No. So basically, what I've got with my sheep, we got a big, chunky, condensed salt blocks.
Yeah.
We've had the Himalayan sort of stuff, but then again, you have these blocks that are condensed sea salt that have been really compacted together, right? And it takes a long time for that salt to dissolve, right? Because it basically goes into like a rock salt form, right? If you can you remember you've had this, haven't you? You've had those rock salt grinders, right? You know, the specialized salt. Yeah. So that's like these, and that's like a hard type of salt. I think that the salt you're talking about these days has actually got lots of chemicals in it to dissolve it quickly, right?
Yeah.
But this salt itself is not the same salt. So for example, right, somebody said to me once, Himalayan salt is good for you, right? So I started taking a spoonful of Himalayan salt a day.
You didn't.
I did. And then I looked her up and I said, this is bad for you. And I just, oh my God, I thought that they meant, so I then thought, right, I'm just going to stop doing that. Anyway, yeah, I did actually. I took a spoonful of her Himalayan salt a day, right? Yeah, stupid me. Anything else? Hopefully you've answered. Shut up, Drina. Hopefully anything you want to say? Okay, Drina,
if it's going to be brine salt, it's not rock salt, is it?
No, exactly.
It's the same problem.
So there's different ways of looking at this, love. There really is. But let's not get into the chemical stuff. You'd spoil it otherwise. Otherwise I'll start cutting my nose hairs, right? And you won't like that. No. Talking about nose hairs, Andy, have you got any? Right, anything? You want to say anything, Andy?
I have.
I'm surprised that they had to smash up the pots. I would really love to know about the process as to why they had to do that. I can understand them not wanting to transport it in the pot because it's heavy, but it's really maybe when they boil it down, it sticks so hard they can't get it out. I don't know, but it's really odd.
I think that is the case, but they've done reconstruction work on it. So what we're going to do, I might actually I might actually add a little bit of that into it. I was going, yeah, okay. We'll see. We'll see.
Intriguing that you've got that one road as well that's in Lincolnshire going across towards Nottinghamshire. There must have been a lot more. Is all
Yes.
I can think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was so prominent in the Iron Age. I know about salt production through modern times, but that's only in the last 1,000 years or maybe even 1,500 years. I didn't know about it Iron Age at all.
Well, actually, if you think about this, I've just clicked on this now. It says, this is Bournemouth University, making the invisible visible. Iron Age and Roman salt production in southern Britain. So, in other words, it's a problem that the experts are actually looking at and basically saying, well, there's a lot that we don't know about this, and it's good to be able to give you this tonight. As something that maybe lots of people don't know about, but then again, Roger and Ruth know all about it. But that's life. Okay.
No, I don't know all about it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, well, Roger knows everything. Okay. Okay. Shut up, Rog. Anything else you want to say, Andy?
Nope, thank you. Fascinating subject.
Good. Have you noticed, Andy? I only pick on one or two people because I know the rest of you probably punch me. Anything, particularly Anne? Anything you want to say, Anne?
Well, yes. They're both a bit off key, but I saw a program once about a troop of monkeys that were sort of moved in by the sea, and they were fed with these potatoes to eat, and one of them threw his potato in the water, and obviously liked it so much that within a fortnight, all the monkeys were throwing the potato in the water to get the salt flavour. And salt is one of these things that benefits us, and probably monkeys become, well, they weren't aware of it, but they moved towards that kind of thing. The other thing I thought about when you're saying nobody talks about it, there's a fairy story, and fairy stories tend to be quite ancient. It tells of a king who got 3 daughters, and he wanted a gift, and one brought him gold, one brought him silver, and the other brought him salt. And he was disgusted at having this salt. But then there was a salt shortage, and he realised how she'd bought him the most valuable gift. So that's been a story for a very long time, which I think explains a bit that some people did realise how important it was.
And it is just so hugely important. It really is, and we're seeing that tonight. And there's another paper in front of me, Journal of Archaeological Science reports production salt, prehistoric salt production, technological approach, and they're talking about this in Europe. They're saying numerous studies have been made on salt production in the European Iron Age, especially through broken, low-fired clay artifacts such as briquetage. So it's all over Europe, Andy. This is the point. It really is. And I've got a few images at the end that basically shows you the process.
Could you not build with salt?
That's an interesting question. Could you not build with salt? Well, you could build with
enough and put into briquettes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they melt if it rained on them? If they're outdoors, they gradually disappear, wouldn't they?
I was just thinking.
But then again, you could say the same about an igloo.
Stops holes from collapsing in walls.
What?
Salt does. Stops holes, stops collapsing in walls.
There's a substance called pykrete that was invented in the Second World War for mixing. You mixed ice with sawdust, and that stopped it from thawing out. And the idea was they wanted to make a landing strip, a portable landing or floating landing strip in the North Atlantic, up in the ice in the Arctic Circle, for flying aircraft over to Europe from America. And they tried it out in a lake in North America, and it stayed there for, I think it was 7 or 8 years. They never actually went into production. But ice is it's a strange subject. So you mix things like that with salt and stuff. It's possible. I don't think you could build houses with it, but you can certainly, if you add stuff to it, it takes a lot longer to melt.
Yeah.
Hang on. Can you run that past me again? Right. What I understood from that, you're mixing sawdust.
Yeah, with salt
these...
water when you're icing. Yeah, when you're freezing it. Yeah.
Right.
And it stays frozen for an awful lot longer for some reason. It goes like concrete. It's really weird. But I don't think you can build. It obviously is going to melt at some point, but it doesn't melt that much.
No, I'm just thinking, would they have used it for other things than just food?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. Yeah.
There's a commodity for just eating.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. There's a lot. They're putting a lot of effort into this. A hell of a lot of effort.
However,
and
the argument against that would be though that if it was that valuable, you wouldn't be using it for everyday use. For like you said, you can use it as a weed killer. You can use it, but you wouldn't do that if it was that valuable. So.
But the thing is, they're back to this breaking the pots, right? Yeah. It's all over Europe, right? So we can't. It happened, right? So you've got people manufacturing these pots, and then the salt guy comes around and breaks the pots after they've used it once to get the salt out. It's just that mind-blowing concept, and it's just.
I wonder if that when the process of the salt, when you're drying it out, it takes something out of the clay, and therefore it actually crumbles anyway, so you can't use it more than once.
Yeah, that makes that's reading something in my head.
Just thinking that could be good, because it's very inefficient to have to make a new pot every time, because they take a bit of making those pots, because they've got to be fired, because they're using them for heat. So there's quite a process. So there's got to be a reason why they do it. Otherwise, they'd just keep reusing them, wouldn't they? Like they did everything else.
And the other thing as well is it's like those stupid. For example, when I used to work for the when I used to work for Ceredigion County Council, they had when they used to tell me about the fact of the matter that most of the stuff that they said was going to be recycled wasn't. They used to tell people that that the food waste that we used to collect was going to be given to pigs and put on the land, but internally the food waste would go to a factory to be then heated up. And then they would use the blocks to their biomass, right? Then they would burn them to heat more stuff up. And you're thinking, what is the point of that? So in other words, to get rid of something, you're burning something to then heat that up to burn it again. And I just think this is absolute nuts, right? But this was something not challenged. They kept on making these pots, breaking the pots, the salt, and then there's a lot more to this than maybe we're not seeing.
And we've talked about preservation, salting stuff down, but of course they didn't have any refrigeration or any of the sort of things that we would normally perceive things with. And the seasons would have made they couldn't get plentiful stuff all the time. So it may have been that would have been a really important thing to produce a lot of salt for. I don't know. Just a question.
There's a lot going into this. There really is. Right. Okay. We got to have a break in a minute. So, Margaret, anything you want to say?
Well, I've been sat nearly all afternoon with my feet in a bowl of salty water because I went for a long walk this morning and my feet were really sore. And I just thought, I wonder if back in the Iron Age, maybe they paddled in the sea and they thought, oh, my feet feel much better. I wonder why.
You bloody didn't, because they didn't even tell you we were doing salt this week.
Well, the Roman soldiers.
Amazing.
They might have soaked their feet with all the marching.
Yeah, I use it for gargling with if I have a sore throat.
Gargling, it makes
Yeah.
you feel better with
If
gargling, doesn't it?
if they discovered the medicinal benefits
Mm.
from bathing in
Some
salty
stuff on,
water.
especially pets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know. Have you know about kosher salt? I thought,
Oh, shut up.
what isn't kosher salt?
What
And
do you mean, my
apparently
boy?
they
Well, I
add,
use Epsom salts in my bath.
they add
Hang on a
iodine
minute.
to salt.
What are
Our
you on about? How can you have kosher salt?
Well, I did think, what's kosher salt? And that's salt that's not been tampered with. But the
Right.
tampering with is iodine. For our table salt, they add iodine to it. I didn't know that, did you?
No.
No,
No.
Yeah.
but I do now.
Oh
I
my
have-
God. This is blowing my head. This is.
I have some smoked sea salt, which is really nice.
Smoked.
Came from Spain.
Did it?
Ow.
It's really nice.
Right,
It's very
okay,
popular.
my
It's
head
very
is starting to
popular in
go.
chocolate now, but they don't think that was
Yeah.
very ancient.
No.
Don't think they used it in that.
Right, guys, let's carry on.
It would have done if they'd known.
Oh God, my head's going. Right, Judith, anything you want to say? Because I need a break.
No, nothing. You can have your break.
Oh, Judith, that's lovely. I really appreciate that, Judith. Right. Oh God, there's too many witches in these classes. They're all cackling. Right, anything you want to say, Roger Gorbachev?
No, I think I'll pack in now.
Oh, no.
You
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
did
I'm
you
gonna
know?
rest my vote. You knows what I mean.
Oh,
Go and have a salt.
all too much, is it?
Go and have an Epsom salt bath.
My weary body after a long day in the operating theatre.
Yeah.
Anybody sorry for me? No.
Yeah. Oh.
Saline wash, that'll help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, rinsed it up. So,
Good
next
to see
week
you.
I should be in a much better position.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or dead. So I don't know which.
No.
Oh.
Go for the better position. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Carl, comb your hair and have a rest.
Right, I gotta be honest with you. I am really upset, right? You get insulted by everybody else tonight, right? I don't give you enough insults, and now you're going. What a bloody punk.
I'll give you a break, Carl, because it's too much of a strain for you.
I'll tell you what's a bloody strain. When I see you next, I'm gonna... Yeah.
But don't be horrible. It's too much horribleness.
Yeah, you joined the right club, mate. Right, okay then, we're going to take a break now. I tell you what, we're going to be back at half, right?
See you soon, Raj.
Be
Have a
good.
good week,
Hey,
Raj.
Raj.
Hope you're feeling better.
Roger.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to make a cup of then.
See you soon, Raj, babe. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Off the red-nosed reindeer. And the very friendly nose.
Raj,
Oh.
Roger, the red-nosed reindeer, had
With
a
his
very
little
shiny
blow.
nose.
I'm going to draw something on the front here.
I think
And
you
you
should.
do something.
Oh,
Or the little man looking on the wall,
Yeah.
But mind your own
my
business. Yeah.
God.
But I got to think of my image. What's left of it. In my injured state. The weak and the feeble. Never mind.
Nosy
I'll
dog.
manage. I expect. Okay, see you all.
Bye, Raj.
Bye,
Bye.
Roger.
Bye, Roger.
Bye.
Better
Bye,
still
bye.
empty your nose.
Salutations.
Barker was.
What?
Right. Okay,
Nosy
Putin, see you.
Parker.
Oh, hey, by the way,
Nosy
Judith, we need him at
Parker.
the live show just to take the pee out of him, don't we?
What?
What?
I'm having a break. Right, see you, Rog.
Right, see you.
Bye-bye.
Ta-ra.
Oh my God, I don't know what the AI is going to make of all this tonight. It's gone so quick, haven't it? Flipping heck. Right, I'm
It's all right. We can get out of it. We just keep saying it's Wednesday, and then it'll get confused.
Yeah, nice.
Well, I'm having another bowl of soup because that was gorgeous.
I find it amazing how Carl seems to be able to find completely different subjects. You know, like we've never done salt production before, and it's sort of. I did get a bit tired of the barrows because they went on a while, but often these things copy does something for a week or two, and he's got something completely different. It's an amazing subject. This so wide and varied, isn't it?
Yes, yes. No, it's some. Every now and again, you come across something. It's like the other week when he was asking for ideas. It was just pure chance that I happened to have seen a program on. That mentioned that site, and I thought, oh, that looks really interesting. And we're doing Iron Age. That should be a really interesting site to look at. But yeah, I mean, yeah, salt production. I never even thought about it. Yeah, that's what makes it interesting because you take it for granted and you don't think about it, and they must have used it, like you said. So it's so versatile a product. So
yeah, I mean, they're all things really that you'd think we'd well, I suppose it's like a lot of subjects you don't even ponder on it or think of it until somebody puts it in front of you.
No.
You know, in a lot of things.
No.
But I find this archaeology amazingly varied. Yeah. You think, well, you know, I mean, I haven't been in it long, but I've been doing so many different things. You'd have thought they'd have exhausted by almost, but we don't do the same thing over, do we?
You think of all the things that we do as adults, as people today. Well, they basically did all of them. They didn't fix their cars, but they did fix their chariots or their shoes or their clothes. And they did all that. So they did everything we did. So there is so much.
I don't know that look at everything. I suppose we've looked a tiny bit at music, which we did look at a flute, didn't we? And some dancing that they were doing in the Sahara. Yeah. We haven't looked very much at festival. You know, there's all sorts of things we do. We do things like the drama. that kind of, there's all sorts of things which you wonder what sort of was the first elements of that, which must have been, something more simple when it started. But there's a whole range of stuff we do, really, that you haven't seen yet with that. That we do. I don't know. I suppose it's.
Well, maybe it wasn't that simple though. Some of the drama, older dramas were, especially if you look at things like some of the Indian dance, even the slightest movement of the hand can be interpreted in so many different ways, and it's got a completely different language, and so it may well be that that because they didn't have a lot of other forms of communication like we have, that they actually meant more. So
yes, could have done, yes. I just think it's just amazing. I think Carl's amazing what he can come up with.
Well,
and yet, as you say, and when you look what we do, we do far more. I suppose two things I'm most interested in looking at the past are the technological advance, which has brought us to where we are from, whatever the first thing they had was a bit of the stone tools and stuff. And the other thing is the social change. How societies have been evolved differently, and and what we can find out about that often through cave drawings or artifacts that are found.
That's getting much more interesting in the last 10 to 15 years, simply because we are getting so much more information, because scientific analysis of stuff is
it's harder to get the social stuff, isn't it? But it is being found.
But that's finding us much more information, so we're now reinterpreting a lot of the stuff that we just took for granted, or just thought this was straightforward, to realize that actually it was much more complicated. So the fact that you've got one salt road there that's established pre-Roman, I mean, there must have been dozens of them, because it wouldn't have just been one. It's like when they discovered that Roman villa, the floor in Gloucestershire, I can't remember which one it was, or which villa it was now. They discovered that the floor had been relayed, a mosaic had been relayed after the Roman period, which meant that, of course, the skills were still there to do it, that the people wanted to do it, that the people, the infrastructure was all there. Therefore, it can't just have been one that was done. It would have been all over, which is completely.
Well, I suppose you get in all sorts of things, don't you? It sort of fashions. It's somebody learns it. Mind you, some of the surprising things are that it isn't in one place. Like the shape of buildings where they built pyramids in various continents, where you wouldn't have thought there was any. I suppose perhaps there's a natural.
It's a natural
simplest shape to get, or something, that it would be, everybody would think of it, but it's still surprising, and it doesn't seem to go absolutely everywhere.
There's a guy who's made a career out of having the kind of pre-Ice Age super race in Graham. Is it Graham? Not Graham Dixon. Graham. What's his name? Oh, he keeps going on about the kind of this Atlantean race because they built these pyramids all over the place, and there's evidence in this. And there is bits of evidence support it, but I don't. Like you, I think people are intelligent enough to work out that if you build something that's smaller at the top than it is at the bottom, it's stable.
Yes, it's more stable. Yeah,
exactly. It's a very straightforward building system. I don't think we give our ancestors enough credit for their intelligence and creativity and ingenious.
No, the more because when I was a kid, you thought of everybody was racist. Really, we had a very racist empire, didn't we? And everybody was stupid except us. And then you find out as you get on that I think often many of these. We tend to think we're cleverer, but we've stood on their shoulders to get where we are. And I often think when I'm looking at some of this, they were a lot brighter probably than we are, because all of them had to. I mean, the hunter-gatherer, a hunter particularly, had got to get a lot of skills to survive. Whereas in our society, you can have you know, farmers who produce all the food. Other people can be doing a monotonous job, just stick it in something in a hole every day.
Yeah.
And not need to do anything to think to get whatever he needs. So I think from that point of view, we could have lost intelligence.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Computers have lost us our intelligence.
That's another thing. Well, I've gone really stupid since I've become absolutely stupid since this, because I can't do them at all.
The AI is going to go mad if you say that. Yeah.
You ask any teenager, can they do their times table?
Yeah.
They cannot.
No.
But they don't need to. The point is that every generation does what it needs. We were told we have to do that. And they don't need to, do they? Because they've got a computer, they got a tool that will do it. So they don't need to. It's a bit like that, isn't it? Which again, I agree with you, they're probably making them less able. Parts of their minds aren't working as well to do that.
They call them zombies, don't they?
Oh, you're playing one of them in the Walking Dead, lovely.
I know. I do a good zombie.
Can I just mention, right, as David and Anne wasn't here last week, what we did last week, we spent the whole session. I've never done this before, but what we did, I basically said, right, we're gonna say, right, what subject would you like to do in to do with the Iron Age? And we went onto Google and we spent like there was like 7 or 8 of us last week, and we did a little bit of that, and we said, yeah, we'll do a whole talk of that in the future, right? And I know I am just dumping this on Anne and David now. But Anne, what would be what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask David in a minute. Anne, as a subject looking at the Iron Age, what subject would you like us to do?
I don't really know. Let me say the two areas that I'm always interested in history and archaeology are technology. I think it's marvelous how technology has made us what we are, and each generation is standing on the shoulders of the one before, which has brought us to where we are. And the other area that I'm really fascinated with is how societies have developed, how they're something about their culture and how they organize their I don't know, hierarchies or not, that kind of thing. I find that very interesting if I can get hold of it. But I don't know whether that's possible in the Iron Age. But those are the two areas that always interest me about the past.
So maybe if I put a talk together, right? We're not gonna look at this now because we just don't have time. But so what if I put a talk together? Was there hierarchy in the British Iron Age? Would that be good?
Yes.
Okay, right. That's not going to be an easy one. That's going to be as difficult as this one.
No,
but that's fine.
It isn't easy to get at, but I find it absolutely fascinating to know how people related to one another in a society, whether it was a very small group or a large one. Okay,
I've rejected what you've said about technology and stuff because that's what we're doing now anyway. So we don't need to do that. And David, is there a subject in the British Iron Age do you think you would like me to cover?
Writing development.
Salt.
Hang on a minute. Yeah, why don't I took David, you're on. Yeah. So why don't we look a little bit about writing from the context of the Iron Age. Doesn't necessarily mean to be in Britain, but maybe we could expand on what David said. Maybe we could look at ways how people may have communicated in forms of writing. Is that something that would be up your street, David?
That's fine, thank you.
Well, everybody's happy. So that's another 2 lectures. And I'll just mention quickly, I have decided to go off Peach. We're going to be looking at Longis in Alderney very soon. We're going to be looking at pets in the Iron Age. We're going to be looking at Black Loch of Nirton, and then we're going to be going into the likes of Vitrified Forts, Huddersfield, Maiden Castle versus Hindenburg, all this Iron Age stuff which we come up with, Sweden versus Iron Age Scotland rock art, Iron Age food, and then just before Christmas, we're going to look at the latest at Ness, the Ness of Brodgar. And we've got to look at the Must Farm update. And guess what I've got? What I might do over Christmas. Oh, we've got Iron Age children pets, Iron Age wheels and chariots that came from the other class, medical practice in the Iron Age, Cyprus textiles in the Iron Age, musical instruments in the Iron Age. Right. So I got enough to keep us going for the whole of January. Right. So and also one that we were supposed to be doing tonight, which we just wouldn't have been able to do, which is lime kilns in the Iron Age. So in other words, I have and these 2 that you've just given me tonight take us into February. So yeah. Anyway, I've got to crack on now because we've got very limited time, and I've got to really try and finish what I was doing, and then yeah, just that'll be fine. So let's just go on. And I don't know what AI is going to say about this, but there's the what you're going to have from AI. What AI does, artificial intelligence, it puts all our stuff in order. It puts all our stuff in order. So if we've been talking about one thing, it brings us back to that and it makes sense of it. So anyway, so if we keep this there for now. I think somebody wants to say something. Go for it. Oh, it must have been somebody trying to die. I don't know. Right. Okay. Oh God. But you know what? You know I love Roger to bits. But there's this other archaeologist who knows Roger, right? And Roger thinks this is funny, but I don't, right? And the other archaeologist says to Roger, he says to Roger, I thought you were dead. And Roger thinks it's hilarious. I don't think it's hilarious. It's not funny at all. No, it's not. Anyway, so what we got to get onto. So the largest. So what we've got is, even though we think we understand the density of this Iron Age trade, they've looked at numbers of sites and they've got an idea, but this is only a pinprick in the head side of trying to understand the Iron Age. In fact, there's a place known as Melton Mowbray and Leicestershire, a place known as the Reek Valley, and they've looked at an area of 4 to 5 kilometers, and you just see that on the map there. You can see Melton Mowbray, and Leicester. That area between Melton Mowbray and Leicester, area of 4 to 5 kilometers. They look specifically in that middle area, and when you think about that, right? When you think about that, it's only a small area that they've actually looked at, right? Only a very small area they looked at. And when they looked at that area, they found domestic enclosures. They found also evidence of iron smelting as well. This is something that we've not mentioned tonight. So they, in that area between Melton, Mowbray and Leicester, they found domestic enclosures. They found evidence of this salt trade, but they've also, in with that, they've found evidence of iron smelting. And the one thing that is very dangerous when we do archaeology is that we just focus on one thing, that we've been focusing on salt. We've not been focusing on anything else. We've not been focusing on food manufacture. We've not been focusing on hill forts or settlements. But what they're saying is that this goes hand in jowl with the fact that also within that landscape they've got ironstone, and they've got evidence of iron smelting in the Iron Age, and with all the settlements and with the with the true depth of study within the landscape, the Iron Age was hugely important in more ways than none in understanding this landscape. It's not just a Roman landscape, it's not just a medieval landscape, it's an Iron Age landscape as well. And what they've done, they've looked at they've also recorded 6 hill forts in that area as well. And let's have a little look at the LiDAR. And this is 3 of them. And this is how these Iron Age sites pan out within this great depth and interesting, diverse landscape. And LiDAR itself, when we think of trying to study landscapes, when we try to think of away from the salt manufacturing within the landscape, what you can clearly see is this landscape is very, very rich in more ways than anything else. So then we think about these sites, back to what we've got, salt production. Then we think about these sites. The big question is, what are these bank and ditched enclosures? What are these hill fort sites got to do with salt manufacture? That's the question. The only indication of salt use at any of these hill forts, 3 of the 6, so these are 3 shown out of the 6 of them, or all the hill forts across the landscape, is the only indication of salt use at any of these hill forts or domestic enclosures is the bricotage vessels found at one of them. Right. There is no other evidence recorded. This lack of evidence is hardly surprising given the soluble nature of salt. That goes back to that point that Drina made, right? It goes back to the other thing that Ruth mentioned, and I mentioned as well, that if you're going to move salt, you're not going to move the salt in the big, thick earthenware containers that the salt has been manufactured in, right? You're going to move those containers. So the lack of evidence is hardly surprising given the soluble nature of salt and the instability of the organic material of the fenland transporting containers. So in other words, we know that there's a massive widespread trade in salt, but the evidence on the ground is limited because there isn't the earthenware containers at most localities. And this is the thing. In archaeology, in absence of evidence, it doesn't mean to say there wasn't that thing there, but people were more practical in the past. They moved the salt around in organic containers rather than the earthenware containers that they'd been manufactured in. Salt was in widespread use at the time for preserving food and other items. And the other thing as well is, when we look away from this map here and we go a little bit further over, we know full well that on the border between Lincolnshire on the right and Leicester on the left, right, there's lots of bricotage, right? So and we know obviously of that red line, the salt way. We know it existed. We know that salt was moving around, right? Salt was moving around so widespread that we don't find any evidence of the salt, right? But the salt is a massively valuable commodity. It would have been essential to these settlements everywhere and a valuable commodity in trade, even if we don't have the evidence on the ground going into the black area over to Leicestershire. So as we come to the end of this wonderful piece that I'm looking at today, right? And yes, that's we'll go on to that in a moment. The discussion with all of this is trying to open us out and try to understand more, right? is that the factors influencing the tracks of early roads and transportation links and movement across this landscape, there are numerous factors to think about. The trade in salt was paramount, right? It was paramount against the geological terrain of the landscape. It was paramount against people's ritualistic needs. It was paramount in economy. It was paramount in the social makeup of the landscape. And in earlier times, influenced as much by animal movement as by people. So the salt is a commodity that is moving with the usual trade along this red road link or trackway link that you can actually see that was later used by the Romans. These many factors are recently constantly being debated. Considering all of these aspects, the evidence that the Iron Age salt way was used as a continuous route from the fen edge to the Sour is varied. Whether the evidence is there, whether it's not, how often it was used, and so on, and how popular salt was over this period. Was it constant, or did it decline, or and so on? The only distinctive element of this landscape of the salt way is that it does go across higher land, a track formed where the land is well drained and firm underfoot. It only drops down to cross the river Witham and at each end of the track. However, salt production, however, when we look at salt production, where it was produced and how it was manufactured varied over time. Now, other factors in regards to the salt are also at play. And this is one of those big things when we think about the Iron Age. This probably links in with something that Anne mentioned earlier on. Other factors may also come into play. The tribal landscape and how the tribal landscape was governed in regards to the hill forts is also important. The production and movement of salt was part of that. And what we need to think about is the Iron Age was a turbulent time, and the interrelationship between the areas on the right hand side, which are the fen land areas, the watery landscapes, and those communities, and those is a fascinating aspect of the period. So what we're talking about is the Iron Age is very diverse. The Iron Age is not about individual little tribes and infighting and warfare. It's more diverse than that. It's more interesting than that. When people talk about tribal warfare and they talk about tribes and death and fighting, they forget about all the topics that we'll be doing in the future. They forget about children. They forget about animals. They forget about the salt. They forget about the writing. They forget about everything. It's almost as if the only thing that people did in the past was fight. But when you think about all these other things, there's something more important at work. The tribal structure that emerged in the late Iron Age saw that the salt probably became a political commodity. The salt way would have been forged as a link between different people across this landscape, a diverse landscape. And the salt way is therefore an appropriate name. Its roots go much deeper than just the Iron Age. People are always connected, but for a time in the Iron Age, the salt became very dominant. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at a few other bits and pieces, a few other images, and that'll lead us nicely to an end of what we've been doing tonight, right? And this talks a little bit more, right? And that there, that gunky stuff is the mixture of these salt marsh plants that's there, and that's probably the salty end result before it's been heated up. So the archaeological evidence, this is one more of these things, right? A briquetage, the discovery of coarse pottery vessels and supporting fillers known as briquetage, is a key indicator of salt age. That again, Iron Age salt making. If we think about that, if we think that the briquetage, we couldn't find the briquetage, right? Then we might think that they weren't really massively into their salt manufacture, right? But the briquetage tells us that they were within this great landscape, all the way thinking about the coast of Lincolnshire, going all the way into Leicestershire and the south as well into Essex. Again, this thing about we passed on this earlier on, salt marsh plants, evidence of salt marsh plants such as samphire or glasswort. So samphire itself is a wonderful plant. I've eaten it a lot when I've wandered along the coast, but it is very, very salty, being used as a fuel to evaporate brine. Experiments have shown that burning these plants and adding them to seaweed yields more salt than seawater alone. And it goes on to say that during the Iron Age, salt was made by evaporating seawater of brine. I'm just reminding you of a few. And again, looking at this, we've not mentioned the brine preparation. We've not mentioned what's going on inland. Brine was likely initially strengthened in large natural pools in the marshes. So these are marshlands inland, which have a salty taint. What you do, you actually have brine springs that it's like a cloudy, dirty water that tastes salty. That's brine, right? Evaporation. The brine was evaporated in small pottery vessels. Again, the briquetage. Crystallization of brine crystallized in the vessels, and the salt was obtained by breaking the vessels. Harvesting, you harvest it by breaking those vessels, right? So what I did, I got a few images, right, which are all these images here, which we're going to go through now. So this one here, it's saying that along the coast, what you might have is these big pans, right, which were 60 centimeters wide, right, 120 centimeters long, and about 12 millimeters thick. And the strong brine, these are big sort of pans. These are not the small vessels that we're talking about. Was then evaporated. So basically, that sort of gently heated up, it's scooped up, then it's put into these small vessels with those pillars that we've seen. And then basically to give the lump of salt which was obtained by breaking the vessels. Every single thing talks about breaking the vessels, other than one source that I mentioned earlier on. And so what I did, I went online, right, and I just thought, right, can I find evidence of these pots, right? And has anyone actually been experimenting with reconstructing these pots? Now these haven't got the legs, and what they're saying, you've obviously got they're shaping these, and these inevitably look like they're made on the wheel, right? But lots of what we do have in Britain, most of the stuff would have been handmade anyway. They're firing them, right? And then you've got the pots, the green pots, which have cooled, and then you're scooping out all that slurry, either out of the salt pans, or you're just heating up seawater or whatever. But you're collecting all this stuff together, and it's put in these pots. And there you can see, and then they break them. Now, it is a lot of work to create these things, as Andy said. It's a lot of work. Now, to do this, you've got to find the clay, right? Let's make this idiot proof. You've got to find the clay, and you've got to make the pots. So that's the second process. Then obviously you've got to fill these pots up with the salt slurry, the salt scum, or whatever. And then you've got to heat them up. All of this uses material. Fire it, you're using a lot of wood, right? That's this, and then you've got the big pans. That's using a lot of wood in the great big pans to collect the slurry. Then the slurry is placed into our pottery there, filling them up, and then you use more material to heat these. Right now, all the evidence that I've seen is that these things don't break in the kiln. right? These ones have obviously broken in the kiln, right? This is going to be the second firing. Go on, Andy.
I don't think that's the second firing. I think that's with the salt in it, and I think that's why they've cracked, and that's why it's breaking.
You think that's the first firing?
I think that's them baking the salt. I think that's they've already made them in the one before. That's them made finished there filled with salt, and then they put them in the kiln to dry them out, and they're drying out with the salt is what is breaking them and causing them to crack.
Now that's interesting you say that, because the other examples that I've seen, they've already been fired, but these haven't. You're right, Andy. These haven't been fired. Andy's right. That's the first firing. They've actually been fired with that in there. But it does, Andy. It does say firing.
Yeah, they're fired there. They're empty there. But if you look, next one is filling with salt, slurry, and then they put them back in the kiln to dry them out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I was saying.
No. It's not a second. Well, yeah, second firing is second firing is a technical phrase that's involved in ceramics. You do your biscuit fire first, then you put your decoration on, and then you do a second firing and to seal it up. Sorry, that's me mixing it up. Sorry.
Sorry, Andy.
You're right.
Right,
we're both
Andy,
right.
Andy, let's do this together. Right.
Okay.
Andy, I think you're right with something else that you just said, though. Right. Let's do this. Andy's right on the technical terms. I was right anyway, but Andy had another point there, which I saw. Right. So we got the shape in. It's fired first. Right. It's filled with the slurry. Then the pots are reheated, not second firing. Andy's right. Andy's right there. It's filled with the salt slurry. Right. And then that breaks it. But what I'm seeing is that maybe in lots of the other examples, they're not broken, Andy. And Andy's got another point as well. When you have a pot and you sit it and it's green, right? Andy, what about putting the slurry in when the pot's green and it hasn't been fired?
I would think that might taint the salt.
It would taint the salt, wouldn't it? Yeah. It would taint the salt.
About firing it.
Say that again.
But who was the person that thought about firing it? You know?
Well, obviously heating it all up in the first place, but
yeah,
whatever's happening, folks, right? The pot is broken, and that's the salt cake.
Yeah,
the salt cake itself. So, but the thing is, this is a lot of work, Andy. This is a hell of a lot of work.
It is. Yeah, that must have been very valuable.
However, they're getting to that stage. Naturally, this is all experimental. Naturally, this is experimental archaeology. They're not got. They can't go back in time and make sure that this is precisely what they were doing. This is why me and Andy had a little bit of a jar there to try and get the terms and all the rest of it right. But you can clearly see there that there's a lot of work gone into this. Hell of a lot of work.
I'll ask her, right, because she used to do ceramics. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of work gone, and also the other thing as well, Andy. Yeah, I've just spotted another problem. Right. These are not glazed internally, right?
No, that's why I thought that was a bit odd, because if you did glaze them, that might protect them, mightn't it? So
yeah, so
raw, aren't they?
Yeah, they're raw. But the point is, right? The reason, let's look technical, right? The reason why you glaze the inside of a pot, right, is because of basically you fire it, and then you back to what me and Andy were getting mixed up with. You fire it again with a glaze, right? And then then any liquid that goes in it is okay, right? It doesn't seep into the pot, right? But however way you look at this, the liquid is seeping into the pot as it's sat there and as it's on the kiln. And yeah, it's a lot it's a lot of stuff going into this, and a lot we probably don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know when
So,
glazing came in, so I don't know enough about my ceramic history, I'm afraid. I mean, there's lots of people painted patterns on, but I don't remember when they started glazing. I don't think people like the Romans and I mean, they've used all sorts of things, haven't they? They've used pitch, and they've used pine resin, and to seal up the insides and things. But actual glazing, I don't know.
So it's all strange stuff. Anyway, we'll look at this. We're going to have to finish soon. So the briquetage technique is attested in prehistoric sites near brine springs. We tested through field experiments several hypotheses regarding this technique. We've just been looking at our hypotheses, folks, how this was done, and this is what the archaeologists did. The hypotheses that withstood the experiment is using salt slurry instead of brine. Right, so you're not just putting liquid in there, you're putting salt slurries, but it's still full of liquid. Right, prehistoric and experimental briquetage samples were analysed. The effort involved by this process revealed the high value of prehistoric salt cakes, but this is what they're doing. They're finding out different ways of firing these, and this is broke. You know, these seem to break. They seem to break the pots anyway. Maybe actually, the point is if you're gonna use brine in one of these pots, the pot's gonna break anyway. So is the pot deliberately broken, or is it just broken in the fire because there's the brine in it? You know, there's these questions that you need to ask. And just finally, what we're going to do, we're going to look at this. So what we have got, they're saying that evidence of salt exploration in Central Europe. That this is what they're talking about, and we've got different examples of pots and styles that have been found at different localities. None of these have got legs on. None of these have got the pillars on. Basically, that one there. That one on the left there, the conical shaped one, that's going to sit nicely in the fire. And the salt's going to be equally heated. You're going to sit down into a fire. It's going to be fine. It's going to work really well rather than a leg, right? You know, we got these ones that have got like little pedestal legs on that stand in there like number 3. So we've got these examples. So these examples, it's saying that come from at least 4,000 years BC across different parts of Europe, and this is what we're finding across Europe, and it's the same thing. They're loving their salt, and this is basically saying that this is from Whittlesea, which is this is going to be on the east coast, isn't it? And it's saying that this is a stand. You got this is to stand the pots in, and the pots are these ones. These are the legs, and these are the legs on there. These are the plinths. These are the stacks, or whatever you want to call them. So there would have been a pot on these, and these wonderful legs here, and that's just a little bit of what's left of the pot. But strangely enough, all of these were found broken, and you're left with a pot with a hole in it with salt cake. And this is a wonderful technology, but again, I don't think we're really going to get and understand what is completely going on, as we did with that little conversation. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the salt process tonight, and hopefully we've done it and we've understood what's going on with Iron Age salt manufacture in Britain. So if anyone needs to desperately go now, because it's gone a little bit, what we'll do, we'll ask, we'll do the usual questions now, but we're going to, I think what we might do next week is we won't do the lime kilns next week. What we might do is we will look at the issue of, where was it? Oh, we're going to do Longus, Alderney, and we're going to do Pets in the Iron Age, if I can possibly do both of them. We'll see. Right, okay then. Any questions from you, David?
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Are you staying with us, Dave? Oh, David. Anyway, many thanks. I'll see you next week, David, and keep being well.
Yep. Bye. Good to see you, David.
David.
Bye bye.
Good night, David. Good to have you along. I like Dave's subject actually. I think Dave's subject is probably going to be the hardest one, but then again, it's not, because I keep talking about this thing about Pictish carvings, and then I might chuck in a couple of Linear A and Linear B stuff, but obviously that's Bronze Age. But then we might develop that, and we might think, well, why are the Greeks got writing, and why are what's going on? Why do people suddenly have writing, and what is writing? How do you define writing? How do you define, for example, my good old Michelle, she's learning sign language, right? Now, would we define sign language a form of writing? But it's do you know what I mean?
It's visual writing, isn't it?
It's more communication, isn't it? Another form of communication than writing. I wouldn't say it was writing.
But you're shaping something. It's not vocal. You're shaping something. You're
no,
moving your hands.
It's not vocal, no, but it's another communication method. You've got vocal, you've got writing, but I think doing hand movements is another means of communication, which isn't writing. Even I would think. I mean, writing is visible.
Depends on how you define writing, because it's also
onto something else, like whether it's a scratch on a rock or a pen on a paper. It's visible when you've done it. Whereas sign writing, is a communication that, like speech, disappears after they've done it.
But then
disappears after that, and sight disappears after the first blink. So it is a communication.
It's communication, definitely a different form.
But then again, this is a side thing, right? Then again, from my old Leicester University days, we actually studied Aboriginal rock art, and we did sand writing and so on, right? So I'm not having a go at you, but are you saying that if an Aboriginal puts the design in sand, and it's meant to be like a story, and it's meant to be read, and it's in sand, different color sand and stuff?
No, that's that because that will stay. That doesn't disappear the moment through the moment to moment like speech does. Speech disappears as you a second after you've done it, doesn't it? In the same way sign speech does. Whereas if you put something in sand, it can last for a day, or it can disappear. It will disappear, but it can. It's visible.
So what about the recorded word?
Recording, it's something again, isn't it? But that very often would rely on speech.
But that's audio writing.
But you can capture like writing, but I wouldn't say it was the same as writing. I wouldn't say it was writing. It's recording. We have different words to mean all these different things.
So it is writing. Is writing something that's recorded?
Yes, it is a way of recording. Yes.
Yeah, it's a way of recording anything.
Like it seems to be a method that has to be permanent. Yes.
Yeah, but is an oral story permanent?
It isn't. No, it isn't. Well, it could. I don't know whether you'd call it permanent, because it is brought up through memory, and unless it's you're saying it's recorded in the brain. Because
we should have.
And it's not as exact as writing, because you can. I mean, in fact, they used to record their history, didn't they? When the wise men of the tribe would record the history of the tribe, and that would be their recording system before they had writing. I suppose you could say, but you still couldn't say it was writing.
Yeah, I'm loving this, and I know Andy is as well. So we've got to mention that the dodgy git is online, right? And he says he loves you, man.
Excellent.
So
Yeah, it's
right. Anyway,
it sounds
right.
like language and writing and communication are like spectrum of light. So there's different frequencies and different ends of the
I mean, there are all
spectrum.
sorts of communication, aren't there? All sorts of different ones. You know.
Yeah.
Radar almost is a communication, isn't it? So all sorts of things can come into it in communication, but writing is one of them rather than all of them.
I remember reading some of the Ogham had some. They suspected.
Sorry, I can't hear that.
Ogham is a form of language that is thought to have had representations in leaves from trees, which is kind of semi-permanent, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like crossover, but I don't know how they know that or why they thought that, or whether it's complete rubbish. But
worth knowing.
Oh, absolutely! I'm sure it's true. Yes.
By the way, somebody's saying, Andy, put your volume up. And secondly, they want to know why we don't provide the jammy dodgers for people on YouTube. Right, Anne's done her bit. Right, let's just do another bloke, Judith.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry, I'm here now.
Oh, Judith, we want you to tell us more
about
the guns of Navarone. Right, go on.
Oh, I haven't even seen that.
You got something to look forward to, Judith. It's quite a good film.
Oh, is it good? Is that the one with Harrison Ford in?
No.
Like it. Oh, okay.
I've seen them all.
Oh.
It's got Clint Eastwood in it.
Oh, right.
As a young man.
Yes, is it Force 10 from Navarone?
Gregory Peck. Of the Guns of Navarone. Why are we even talking about that? I got to look this up on right, okay. I got to look this up on my phone. Right, right, Andy, you do your bit now. It's up to you.
Oh no, I kind of already gone into that. I find it all fascinating, all that. So I've got nothing more to add to it. It's salt and kind of when you start trading and the roots. We're back to that, I can't remember what you call it now, where you the way people move from place to place. Not I like it from outside, you like it inside, is what you can learn about a place and things, So, and funnily enough, the Romans use the same route again. Isn't that odd, isn't it? Yeah.
The Romans, the Romans, what it is, the Romans spiritually said that we want this route, and the Iron Age people set it up, and then the Romans took it over. There you go.
So it just shows what they do, doesn't it? Hey, look, there's a route here. Just make it a bit wider and put some gravel down. They'll think it's great. 2000, and throwing all that rubbish away, they say it's recycled and all the rest of it. That pottery's been there for 2,000 years. It hasn't recycled, has it? It's still there.
It's still there.
Exactly, it's still there. Maybe the archaeologists are recycling it too. Yeah.
Hey, that's a new angle for archaeology, isn't it? Recycling the history's rubbish.
Exactly, and sell it on YouTube.
Yeah, history's rubbish. Yes.
Oh dear, this is all going the wrong way, Carl.
We have heard of the pits, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You should see
a good midden. Yeah.
Midden, yeah. Good. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Who's next? Did Judith have a say?
Nope.
No.
She hasn't seen the Guns of Navarone.
No.
That's as far as it got. Sorry, Judith. That's as far as you got, didn't you? Yeah. Well, they are no comment. Yeah.
No, I think they use rivers a lot for transport.
And so, yes, but we've got the road, the Salt Way.
Yeah, that could. Yeah, I think roads can come and go, can't they? Because you've got sea levels and marshes, and then it drains, and then the Broads arrive, and then you get rid of a lot of fens, and the rivers and the waterways mostly they're still there, aren't they?
That's what those rodents are, aren't they? Those kind of raised.
The rodents.
Yes, I suppose. Yes, yeah.
The rodents, we love it. Those raised areas of crap, stuff, Cool. Right, talking about Ruth has to have her say. We've still got Drina and Phil. Phil, we haven't heard from Margaret for ages. It's almost as if she don't exist. Right. Oh, go on. Let's not have Gobby Ruth a minute. Let's just have Gobby Margaret. Go on, Gobs.
I've nothing much to say really.
That's because you're on the wrong computer.
By the way, doesn't Margaret's hair look much better in this light?
Oh, golden. Yeah.
It's very yellow, doesn't it?
You've got golden.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I've never heard of bricotage. That's a new word.
Nope.
Is that only ever used in the salt context?
I don't think it is. I've heard it in other contexts as well. But you've also learned the other thing, a salt cake.
Oh, I've heard of salt cakes.
Yeah, everyone's heard of salt cakes.
Yeah. Well known. But bricotage.
Bricotage, yeah.
That sounds French.
It probably is.
Yeah.
But you have learned something else this evening.
What's that then?
You're gonna be quizzed a moment, right? Where do they get the word soldier from?
You said earlier.
You said earlier something about Sal.
Yeah, Sal. Yeah, and also salary also comes from
salary.
salt.
Yes, I knew about salary.
Yeah. Not celery, salary.
Is worth this salt.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And salt is very important for so many things.
Exactly.
Preservation. I've written things down even. Preservation, flavouring, currency, medicinal, de-icing, tanning, soap making, and such like.
You know, this is going to be in the AI stuff.
And for soaking your feet in and gargling.
I cannot wait to see this. You know, the report is done like 5 minutes after we finish.
Oh. How does it know who we all are? Does it recognise our voices?
It knows everything.
Well, you'll be written down as Phil because that's how you are on you. Oh, hang on.
Going to really confuse it, isn't it?
Hang on. What I'm going to do is, Andy, this is going to really confuse it. If I change your name to Margaret now.
Oh, right, yeah. See what it does. Yeah.
If I change your name to Margaret now, right? I want to see what in the report it'll say 1 moment Phil, right?
Yeah, I'm going to change mine and I'll just take.
Oh, go on, do it.
Oh, your name is changed to Margaret. There I am. Yeah, it might crash the whole thing. You might just flummox
your name.
And the big question I've been asked online: why does the inside of the Great Pyramid stink of ammonia? Right, Ruth.
Yes.
I can tell you why that is.
Andy, don't go there, please. Ruth.
Well, I'm just finding it really fascinating, you know, about this salt. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But about the pottery, right? I can remember being down Lantwit Beach when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and there was clay on the beach, and me and my brother made ashtrays for my mum, and she had them 70 years later.
Mm.
You know?
Hang on a minute, I missed that. What's being made into ashtrays?
No.
Clay
on the beach.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. What's that got to do with salt?
Well, we're on about the pots and that, you know.
Yeah. Bricotage.
Bricotage.
Yeah.
My brother used to make vases out of old 78 gramophone records and things.
Do you know who we haven't mentioned tonight? Lloyd George.
Yeah, slipped up there, Carl.
No, I've mentioned him.
He would have been involved in salt.
Yeah, and Lloyd George. And I'm going to mention somebody else who we haven't mentioned, Donald Trump and Nigel Farage. We've got them all in there.
Well, we weren't supposed to mention them.
Just lowering the tone.
I thought they were off limits to talk about.
Hang on a minute. I want to know what AI says about all this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say what I think because he'll crash us.
I like squid.
Somebody said bloody good waste of good vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with that. It was all the rage at the time.
It was,
It was all the rage. Yeah. Yeah.
But
God.
to hear In a Monastery Garden played again. I think that definitely was
Right.
better than bars.
I've still got my dad's 75s.
Have you?
Yeah.
Can I ask if this is relevant? Right, when I'm a big fan of Kylie Minogue. When I first saw Kylie Minogue first over Barry Island, right, somebody said to me, right, do you want the used tissue from Kylie Minogue's bin from the hotel?
Really?
It's all archaeology, mate. It might be modern,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
How do I know that she blew her nose in it?
Well, you don't.
Do you know what I was
You could get it analysed.
Do you know what I watched the other night? Somebody selling their sweat online.
Right. That's kind of like they're kind of selling teardrops and things, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? Whatever.
Teardrops are salty. And you sweat is
good. Well done, Margaret. You brought it back to salt again. Brilliant.
When you sweat, it's salty. My dog used to love licking my legs.
Yeah. That's getting a bit too much information there, Margaret. I think
It's the salt, isn't it?
But yeah, it's back onto bodily functions again, isn't it?
No, middle functions. We got onto ammonia in appearance.
AI's gonna love it. Yeah. Spaghetti hoops. Mm.
Oh my God! Right, okay, we're going to Drina now. Drina, just say something sensible.
Oh, please. I can't talk for laughing.
No.
No, I've got nothing to that. I couldn't possibly.
We never did all come. We said we'd all come in our hats one day, didn't we? No,
none of you have.
Wonderful hat. We never did get round to that, did we? Coming in our hats.
Well, we could do that next week if you like. We'd have a hat day.
I'm away from
we could.
I'll have to wear Phil's hat.
Can you remember the time that I think what did it for Sandra and Peter was that didn't John put a pair of his underwear on his head one day?
He did, yes.
Put a dishcloth or something, didn't he?
No,
he's bonkers.
No, it was underwear.
He did have underwear on his head one day as well, yes.
I don't think Peter was too impressed.
No, he wasn't. No. I think that was kind of almost the last straw.
I think it was. Yeah. Oh God!
I don't know why he did it. Yeah,
I think he was drunk most of the time in my lecture.
Well, that's true. He did like a glass of wine, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
He did make some good questions, good comments though a lot of the time.
Did he?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Margaret did.
Well, as long as it's not about Aboriginal slavery, that's fine.
Yeah, he got a bit lost on that one, didn't he? Missed the point entirely.
Yeah.
God. I thought I was going to lose my license over that.
Mm.
What's that?
Yeah. What slavery?
We do not want to go into what he said, right? But I was absolutely. I had to say I don't think. What did I think? I said that I don't think that was very acceptable. I can't say what it was, but it was not nice.
It's a bit like the denial theories for all the other major events in the world, without wanting to sling it all together and get into trouble.
I'm not saying a word because I'm very, very political and I don't want to get incriminated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
But by the way, Ruth, if you play the person who is actually surrounded by zombies, you get yourself ripped to pieces.
I don't care. I really don't care.
You would if you've been eaten.
Get some danger money just in case.
I don't.
Flippin' heck.
So what have I got to wear?
Did they not tell you about that?
Yeah, you won't care if you're dead.
In
You got
bits.
a good bikini or something.
Wear a smile.
Yeah, just keep smiling. Yeah,
God, I'm gone.
yeah. It'll make an impact. You'll have a career.
I swear, Carl, that's
Oh God! Right. Okay. Right. Anyone want to say anything else before we finish?
No, it's good. Thanks.
no.
Except good night.
Well, that's a
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we're all going now. We now. Right. Oh, flipping heck.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I've got to take the dog out now.
who let the dog out?
I've got to take the dog out.
You got to take the dog out. Have you?
Don't mention dogs.
Don't mind. Oh,
Ah.
look. Oh, yeah, exactly. Okay. Oh, flipping heck. Right. Okay then. Anyway, I'm gonna thank you for. We'll be back next week, Tuesday. We know what we're doing next week, but I can't promise that we will be. That we can do. We're going to be doing Longest Alderney. First time ever we're looking at the island of Alderney, so that'll be good. If we look at Iron Age pets, then that'll be. But it's some of these things are like things that people are talking about now. So Iron Age pets, that's a pretty good one. So.
Yep.
AI.
Oh,
Aye. That'll upset it.
AI.
Iron Age is IA.
E-I-E-I-E-I-A.
E-I-E-I-O.
If you're a Yorkshireman, you'd say AI.
Aye.
If we say Age Iron, will it make it go to Iron Age?
Oh, we'll have to see.
Try.
This cat is awfully big. I've got to be honest with you. It's huge, isn't it?
Observer.
What?
I said, make of it what you will, observer.
Aye, right.
Isn't it?
AI.
And any other newspaper, yeah.
Oh yeah. We can't just mention one, can we?
No.
Other newspapers are available.
Yeah.
Other newspapers are available, like
Allegedly. Yeah.
like the Barron District News. Like I'm still the only columnist left.
Yeah, he's still writing that one.
Yeah, the weird thing is about the Barron District News, right? Is that they about 10 years ago they used to have a circulation of with another newspaper about 33,000, right? And now they've got a circulation of 1,500, and the thing is, it's my fault that the circulation's gone down apparently. 1,500. 1,500.
How do they keep going with that?
I don't think they can.
It's amazing that they have kept going with that circulation.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know our Westmoreland Gazette, Carl?
Yeah, I do. I did. I've written a couple of things in it. Is it still going?
It is. Yeah.
But they don't do Spot the Dog anymore. And
what?
That will have lost a lot of.
That was good. That. Instead of Spot the Ball, we had a sheepdog there would be sheep around, and it was Spot the Dog.
Yeah, it was really popular.
It was really popular, yeah.
Yeah. I think you won £1, didn't you, or something?
Was it as much as that? Wow. Luxury. It went through a period, got bought out, and it suddenly started including all sorts of stuff in the north of Cumbria, which had got nothing to do with the Westmoreland Gazette. And a lot of people stopped buying it, but it's gone back to where it was now, to just covering really South Lakes and Westmoreland area. So it's got quite good again.
A lot of bricotage in it.
I'm looking at the circulation now. It's my God.
Salt helps the circulation.
It's got a massive circulation of 7,300 still.
What, the Westmoreland Gazette?
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a lot, I suppose. You can't make a living out of that.
Well, 7,300.
Yeah, I don't know. How much is it now? £2.50 or something? I can't remember what it is.
No, it's under £2. I think it's £1.50.
£1.50. So it's not a lot of money every week, is it? To keep a newspaper running.
But then again, got the adverts.
Yeah. There's a fair bit of advertising in it, but.
But actually, for the Barron District News, I'm actually the only columnist that they've got left.
Yeah.
They've got like a reporter now that covers 4 newspapers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the Gazette was doing. Had a pool of reporters based in Carlisle.
For like 5 different newspapers,
Yeah. Can understand it. They want loads of local stories, but in the past they would talk to you about it and write it, or get you to send just the facts in. They'd write it. Now they want you to write it for them. So,
yeah. And whether it's right or wrong,
and they stick their name on it. So,
yeah, I've had that.
Shocking.
Yeah, I don't mind writing stuff for them and getting a credit for it or not, but I don't like somebody else taking the credit for it, which is what they did last time. So I didn't give them any more.
I know, basically, when I actually credit somebody in my column, right, they don't put their name in it, so it's only me who gets the credit, which I don't think is acceptable, to be honest with you.
No.
When somebody else takes photographs and it goes in my column, I get the credit for that photograph, and it's not even my property. But
that's funny, isn't it? Because in all other forms of publishing, they're really quite strict on making sure that whoever's done it or taken the photograph gets the credit for it, haven't they? So
no, they don't do that.
Really strange. Wonder why they've branched away so much. I suppose it may be avoiding copyright issues, mightn't it? So
yeah. Shocking.
Yes, it is.
Shocking. On that note, we've now beaten the all-time record, 10:31. We've done it, guys. Finally, well done.
Yeah.
So
it's my bedtime.
Yes, baked potatoes with cheese is what I've got to say.
Potatoes with cheese.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
Okay, on that note, if nobody else got anything else to say, look forward to seeing you all next week. It's been a blast, Trina, Anne, Rufus, Margaret, AI, Judith, and Andy, and some weird people online as well.
Yeah. Good night to all and all online. Thanks, Carl. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Night. Diolch yn fawr chi. Nasta. Ymar o hyd. Right, that's it for tonight on YouTube. Many thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If anyone would like to make a donation to my PayPal account, I would extremely be very grateful. So chuck a couple of quid over. Yeah, so we'll put that link now. And there's my link for any donations to, or you can even buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee. You can buy me a coffee.com. Oh, go on. You know you want to, the Dodgy Git Show. Go on, put your hand in your pocket. Go on. Buy me a coffee. Even chuck some money over my PayPal. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to call it a day. So we'll be back on tomorrow night. Anne will be talking about her knickers tomorrow night, alongside the rest of the lecture, and Damp Timbers, and Lloyd George. And don't mention Donald Trump once. So that's what we're doing tomorrow. No, we're not doing Donald Trump tomorrow. We're going to stay away from politics. We're doing the Iron Age tomorrow, more of this. I'm looking in chat box on 3, 2, 1. Nothing in the chat box on 1, 2, 3. Done. Nas 'da chi. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch chi eto.